If destiny versus chance is only a placeholder theme for the movie, then what is Forrest Gump really about? Welcome to part 2 of Gumping on Happiness. We will continue to look into what makes Forrest Gump's mindset so unique. To imagine a destiny is to organize all our experiences, memories, and understanding into one story, one coherent, unifying life script that has more meaning than the sum total of all its episodes.
What's your sole purpose in this army?
This life script has started long before our birth, be it a family legacy, a social cast.
I should have died out there with my men, but now I'm nothing but a goddamn cripple.
Or a condition forced upon us. Which leads to my second audacious theory. Forrest Gump teaches not to grieve. At various points, the contrast between Lieutenant Dan and Forrest is hard to miss.
He didn't want to be called crippled, just like I didn't want to be called stupid.
Lieutenant Dan holds on to resentment and antagonizes things that stand in his way to happiness. As his heartbreak festers into resentment, he focuses on the present adversity which he cannot control and let himself getting possessed by it.
An imbecile, a moron who goes on television and makes a fool out of himself in front of the whole damn country.
Like many soldiers living with PTSD, he goes through the stages of grief, denial, anger, negotiating.
If you're ever a shrimp boat captain, that's the day I'm an astronaut.
Deep inside, he grieves over his own failure and finds himself inadequate. If there's one person who could tell Lieutenant Dan that all his grief is going to end in the future, and it's reasonable for him to expect to be happy again, and that person is Dan Gilbert again.
But we do study people who experience the worst things that can happen. Terrorist attacks, the death of their family, the loss of their limbs. And here's what we know about them. They experience one of 4 patterns over the first few years after their trauma. We know that about 20% of people who experience a truly tragic event will be devastated by it. They will not be better even years later. We know that about a quarter of people will recover. They'll feel bad at the time, but they will get better. They'll come back to their normal level of happiness within about 2 years. But about 50% of people are resilient. 50%. The largest group of people are just fine at all times. What this suggests is that human beings are not a field of fragile flowers. They are hardy, they are tough.
I never thanked you for saving my life.
Human beings are remarkably resilient, but they don't know this about themselves. Consider end-stage renal disease. If you have end-stage renal disease, this disease of the kidney, you will have a very restricted diet for the rest of your life, for example, but probably the most important event is that you will have to go to a kidney center and have your blood filtered by a hemodialysis machine several times a week for the rest of your life. When you ask healthy people, first, how happy they are now, and second, how happy they would be if they were on dialysis, you see data like these. You see them saying, oh my gosh, I'd be much less happy if I had end-stage renal disease and I were on dialysis. But you know what? There are lots of people who are on dialysis, and we can find out how happy they are, and guess what? They're as happy as people who aren't on dialysis. And yet when they are asked, would you be happier without dialysis? They say, oh, of course. When you look at this chart, the purple bars are the real world. 2 groups of people who are about equally happy on average. The yellow bars are the world that the mind thinks it lives in. A world where hemodialysis makes us very unhappy and being liberated from it makes us very happy. Both of those products of our imagination are wrong.
In Professor Gilbert's best-selling book, Stumbling on Happiness, he says, we assume that we feel as we imagine the future is what we will feel when we get there. But in fact, what we feel as we imagine the future is often a response to what's happening in the present. When we try to overlook, ignore, or set aside our current gloomy state and make a forecast about how we feel tomorrow, we find that it's a lot like trying to imagine the taste of marshmallow while chewing liver. As Professor Gilbert's research shows, 25% of the subjects do heal eventually. He is among them.
It's what they use on the space shuttle.
The personal tragedy has taken its toll on his ability to heal for years. Unlike Forrest... Hold on. Hasn't Forrest suffered loss in the war?
Felt like something just jumped up and bit me.
Stop that face! I wanna go home.
We sometimes forget that Forrest's life's narrative is comprised of a series of deaths of loved ones. A gradual but utter destruction of his inner circle.
I will miss you, Forrest.
He lost his best friend to Vietnam War, his mother to cancer, and then his great love, Jenny. Their deaths all hit him hard. As we vicariously live through his sorrow and his pain, he practices a form of escapism without the aid of alcoholism or self-pitying. He brushes them off with a weighty reticence.
And that's all I have to say about that. That's all I have to say about that.
It was a bullet, wasn't it?
A bullet?
That jumped up and bit you.
Perhaps for Forrest Gump, his pain is no greater than his flesh wound. Forrest Gump is lucky. He can recover from sadness as his flesh would heal.
Bubba. Bubba was my best good friend. I had to make sure that he was okay.
His mental resilience reminds me of a school of philosophy, Stoicism. He doesn't dwell on things in life that he has no control over. In Epictetus' book, How to Be Free, he points out that we shouldn't concern ourselves with things not up to us, such as our health, property, status, our reputation. The only thing we can control is our own doing, our judgment, motivation, desire, and aversion. If you know what you truly own in this life, nothing really harms you. Forrest Gump shows heroism in his courage to let things go. He practices a Zen master-like resignation, even with all the heartaches of losing loved ones.
Don't you be afraid, sweetheart. Death is just a part of life.
But is the movie really teaching us the morals of Stoicism?
Quiet, he's gonna say something.
Is unconditional acceptance really a virtue we can aspire to?
I'm pretty tired.
Is this too convenient or too callous to expect people to let go what they cannot control?
I'd always think of Jenny.
If someone remains unaffected by compounding tragedies, then the audience empathy stops eventually and the movie would not work. Perhaps that's the reason why Forrest Gump's sequel failed to see the light of day. Here's screenwriter Eric Ross talking about the sequel.
The little boy dies of AIDS early on in the movie. Lieutenant Dan gets shot. He runs for Congress and gets shot and killed. He meets this woman. He lives within a trailer, and basically toward the end of the movie, he waits for her every day at a federal building because she teaches in the nursery school there. And he's sitting there, and the whole building blows up behind him. It was the Oklahoma City bombing.
Jesus.
Now that was sort of the most horrible thing I could think of. And I turned it in on 9/10, the day before 9/11, and Bob and Zemeckis, the director, and Tom Hanks and I sat together and we looked at each other and said, that's the end of this. I think nobody had the stomach for it anymore, you know?
For someone who has encountered true malevolence and have their life shattered by it, resilience has its limit, especially in a movie. Forrest's avoidance of grief is neither as cathartic nor as heroic as Jenny's eventual overcoming of her childhood trauma. Kudos to her, Jenny and Forrest coming together might have given the audience some leeway to misremember the movie's ending as a happy one. But when the ongoing tragedies compound in Forrest's sequel, it's obvious no one can project their feeling on the stoic. Are you ready for my final theory? Here it comes. Forrest Gump keep his eyes on the ball.
Now, the secret to this game is, no matter what happens, never, ever take your eye off the ball.
As a savant, Forrest can excel in a number of random tasks to the level of superpower, provided he focused on them.
That boy sure is a running fool.
But there's a subtlety to his focus. Forrest focuses on being a team player. He is not battling the campaign of life on his own.
You just lean right back against me.
I'd be your first mate. Well, here I am. I am a man of my word.
Okay.
He would be left in inaction and confusion had there not been the wisdom from his limited but effective social network.
Ever let anybody tell you they're better than you, Forrest? If God intended everybody to be the same, He'd have given us all braces on our legs.
Just if you're ever in trouble, don't try to be brave. You just run, okay? Just run away.
I ran and ran, just like Jenny told me to.
I made me a promise to Bubba in Vietnam that as soon as the war was over, we'd go in partners. He'd be the captain of the shrimp boat and I'd be his first mate. But now that he's dead, that means I gotta be the captain.
If we look closely, the one thing Forrest focuses on is his capacity to love. He cares for the people around him despite his lack of understanding of external circumstances.
You want a chocolate?
He doesn't have acute empathy, but treats them as he would treat himself. Not everybody responds positively to his way, but the ones that do gains his loyalty for life.
Bubba, Lieutenant Dan. But most of all, I thought about Jenny. I thought about her a lot.
Unlike Forrest, most of us are very competent in forming association with other human beings, but the relationship Forrest formed are for life.
Why are you so good to me?
You're my girl.
I'll always be your girl.
In order to zone in on the single-minded focus that makes Forrest unique, I have to turn to Martin Buber, famous Jewish philosopher and theologian. To summarize Buber's philosophy, I and thou, we can say, although we usually treat each other like objects, we can also treat each other like the luminous sacred beings we actually are. When an I confront a human being as my thou, and speak the basic word I thou to him, then he is no thing among things, nor does he consist of things. Neighborless and seamless, he is thou and fills the firmament, not as if there were nothing but he, but everything else lives in his light. Forrest's actions embody the I-thou attitude in all his close relationships. We've already talked about Forrest makes no decision and passes no judgment about his future. But look at this very telling scene. Mama sent me $10.
Mama sent me $10, and I'd like to spend it all on you.
Come on, come over here. Let's sit. Just sometimes I wish you'd let me know when you're coming, because I have plans tonight.
Hey, Jenny.
Hi, David. This is Forrest.
Well, we could all spend Mama's $10.
Well, I'm going out with David, just the two of us. I need you to understand, okay?
Well, since I won't be doing anything, I won't be needing Mama's money.
Listen, keep it. You keep it, and we'll do it another time, okay? All right, I'll hold on to it, okay?
Come on, Jenny, let's keep going.
All right. Please don't hate me.
I can never hate you.
Throughout the whole time, Forrest keeps his eyes fixed on his loved ones. They are the lens through which he sees the world.
I wish I could have been there with you.
You were.
In the spiritual language of Martin Buber, everyone who touched Forrest's life left him thinking the world of them. There are nothing left outside of them. They are it.
Even I know that ain't something you can find just around the corner.
Forrest loves them as if no fame, no fortune, no earthly treasures can ever measure up to their importance. When people remember him as the sweet man that he is, his focus on love is the divine quality we recognize in him without risking putting him on the pedestal. We want him rewarded, not as compensation for his lacks, but out of the appreciation for how this innocent but fierce love livens up the human relationships that are only too rare to believe in.
I'm not a smart man, but I know what love is.
Hi guys, thank you so much for watching the second episode of Forrest Gump, and this completes the video essay of Forrest Gump on the channel When I Think Like You, the first 2 episodes on this channel. Thanks again, and don't forget to subscribe and click the notification button so you won't miss another video. I'll see you guys soon.